In real estate, there's a few things that I think realtors are afraid to talk about. I'm not going to address them all in this particular video, but I think it's important to address the one, and I think it's the condition of your home. And I'll give you an example. I had a seller, it was a few years back now, and he lived in his house. Him and his wife had been divorced quite a while. I want to say it was 15 or 20 years, quite a while. And so he was actually selling because he had met a new lady. She lived in the States, so he was headed down to the States. But he lived in this house with his two teenage sons. And so when I walked into this house, initially it smelled like a gym locker. I kid you not. It was really, you could just see it was sort of a guy's house. And then you walk into the dining room and there is a V8 350 Chev motor that he's building. The parts are all over the dining room table and the motor is there on an engine stand. Now I get it. Coming from a life where I was a previous licensed motorcycle mechanic, you don't want to rebuild a motor outside in the garage in the wintertime if it's not heated or insulated, right? So I do get the idea, but when it came time to selling a house, of course he moved all the motor and everything out. But the fact is everybody would walk into that house at an open house or a showing, and the feedback I would get, man, this house stinks, it's so dirty. And so I kept gently telling him. And so before we would have a showing or before we would have an open house, I would actually go through with Febreze and spray the house and open the windows, because Febreze can be strong. So I would spray it down, then I would crack the windows in the wintertime just to let some fresh air in, right? And just before an open house. And it was one of the more challenging houses because I was constantly having to give this seller feedback that his house was really stinky. And so finally one day, he actually took that upon himself and did a really good clean, and actually had a buddy with a steam cleaner. And so he went and got the steam cleaner, and he called me. I'll never forget that he called me up that afternoon and goes, I can't believe it. He goes, I've done the carpet 3 times with the steam cleaner. The entire house was carpet. It was basically, it needed a reno. It was outdated. But he calls me up and he says, I can't believe it. I've done the carpet 3 times and the water in the steam cleaner is still coming out black. And I'm like, finally. And finally, when he did that and he invested his time to, when he was finally not upset with me for telling him that his house was stinky and he was listening to what I was saying, he finally realized that the house needed to be just a little bit cleaner. It was just a little bit too dirty. So there's 2 things as a seller you can control, and it's either price or condition of the home. You either have to change the condition of the home to raise it to meet what it is, your price expectation, and the buyer's price expectation, or you have to adjust the price to compensate. Only one of 2 things. If you have any more questions about how your home would look, what that would look like getting it on the market in 2025, feel free to reach out.